Hey guys, I'm a meathead gamer, probably just like you. I understand the importance of playing Stellar Blade, but I also understand the importance of being in a squat rack. So I got the perfect programs for you. Hammerhead, Shogun, the Tenacity Strength Hypertrophy Method, all of these designed to get you bigger, to get you stronger, and to be like one of these characters on Stellar Blade that don't look like one of these ugly ass monsters. So hit me up at Tenacity Strong and get a copy. It will do nothing but help you achieve your physical goals, and you'll get better at your gaming goals. Because when you look good, you play good. All right? Y'all have a good one.
Streamcast.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Streamcast, and I am gassed to have to my left, if you're watching, David. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing good, man. Great, happy to be there, happy to be here. Yeah. I'm I'm surprised how every time I'm on one of these, the way people could just flip into the mode is so interesting. I love it. I love it. It's just keep me. I've done this so many times. Let's just get right back into it. I love it. No, keep going. So yeah.
I'm like this 100% of the time. Let's not break the magic spell. Always on 100.
You turn off so fast. You're like, well, guys. I said,
Hey, you
yeah,
can't
no,
wake the
fair,
people
fair.
up, you know. If people are sleeping,
Yeah, no, I
wake
get
up.
you. I get you. I get you. Keep them awake. Yeah, keep going. So, that's right.
But yes, as you know, we've been interviewing indie creators, creating their own games, telling their own stories, and David is no different here. So please, David, give us a little bit as to who you are and what you do.
Okay. Hey guys. Obviously my name is David, but online I talk about like a bunch of different stuff. But I have a YouTube channel called The Storyteller, where I make like a bunch of different videos, be it about games, about like black nerdy content, socio-political issues, what have you. And I'm also a game developer. I work on a game called NIXIE. It's a set in Black Britain, set in Lewisham. And it's about this young girl called Fiona, and she rides around on a hoverboard and defeats people's like spirits and like demons within. Really fun stuff. And I also work on like a food bank initiative on the side where like we kind of get some supplies and we put them into like the Lewisham like Trust our Trust food bank, and we just give people resources, and we do that bi-monthly. That's who I am. That's what I do.
That was really nice, really snappy. So we were talking a bit before we started recording, and we've got a lot of common interests. Um,
Awesome. Come on, ground.
But this is one thing I ask like all of my guests, whether it's comic books, whether it's video games or something else that they're creating. There is always that first, that first comic book or that first manga or that first video game that you play. What was your first video game, David?
My first video game was Sonic Adventure 2. Sonic Adventure 2, my brother would play on our Dreamcast all the time. And I remember we used to play multiplayer on it, and he would always pick Shadow. And I was like, well, he blue, so I'm going to pick Sonic. I think Sonic blue was my favorite color at the time. And that was like my introduction, not just to the Sonic series, but to this kind of idea of like video games and like, not like the games where they just give you toys as a kid, but I mean, like, here's the controller, play it, you know?
Yeah.
So that was like my first eye-opening experience to what games are. And Sonic, first of all, that game is obviously iconic for a lot of reasons. I prefer Adventure One personally, but the game is still iconic. Nah, number one, you can't forget.
Finally,
Nah, because
finally.
no, because the levels are better. Okay, let's not
Hey,
even get into that.
I'm just
The
happy
levels are
because
better.
you're like the
Yeah.
first person other than me to have that opinion that I know of. So I'm here. I'm gonna let you
Let,
cook.
let me. Oh, maybe I'll cook, but I hope I don't get you into trouble. Here's the thing with SAT. Yeah. Before I get it, like this is my first game, so you know when I'm saying this, there's an attachment there. The levels aren't as good as SA1, right? The way SA1, the levels are open, like Red Mountain, what's it called? Speed Highway, like, and you can use all the different characters in them. What's it called? You can use Tails as without the mech. Treasure hunting, I don't find fun, but it was more tolerable in the first game. I personally like Amy's gameplay. Story for Gamma is fire. Like, obviously, the Sonic levels are good. And it felt like with SA2, they made them way more linear, if that makes sense. And it was
Mm.
more like uh there were these like cool set pieces, right? But there was less to kind of interact with in the game. SA1 has hub worlds, it has all this stuff. Like, it's just there's a lot more going on in SA1 for me to latch onto. Like, So yeah, nah. SA1's the go. Well, obviously SA2 was my first game, so I've got a soft spot for it. Looking forward to what movie 3 does, but yeah, like got a very soft spot for it. So yeah,
Oh my
that's
days.
fine. Yeah.
This might be a hot take, but the Sonic
Hmm?
cinematic universe is greater than the Marvel cinematic universe. Those two films that we've already had have been fire. And the Shadow
You know
River.
what? I'm not even actually, you know, funny. I'm not even that into Marvel like that. So I would agree with you, but that's just because I'm so biased. I just like Sonic. You get me? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So like I
that's an
can't even.
impartial
'Cause
opinion
I
there.
remember, yeah, I watched Infinity War, right, and I was like, yeah,
Mm.
that's cold, but like I don't really like. You know what I mean? Like I don't really care like that. Sonic, when it's interesting because obviously, like, it's easy to forget. The first movie just ends with Tails showing up, right, and people
Mm.
lost their minds. Do you know? Oh gosh, this is getting into the further movie stuff. I want movie 4, whatever they do after this. I want it to be Silver or Metal Sonic, man. That's what I'm trying to see.
Mm.
No, because man, obviously you saw the quill in the trailer, so the quill communicates to me, oh, you guys are setting up Metal. But and then have you seen the Knuckles show?
I've seen the first episode. I haven't seen the rest of the series.
Yeah, you don't need to see the rest. Don't worry.
Oh, is it?
Nah, but like, do you know about Knuckles and the Flames of Disaster thing?
No.
Yeah, oh
Tell me,
damn.
tell me, tell
Maybe I
me.
shouldn't spoil it. But long story short, like I feel like they're setting up Silver a little bit. And I think
Mm.
the idea is gonna be Metal Sonic takes over in the future and Silver comes back and it feeds into Sonic CD and like you can tie those stories together. That's where I think they should if it was me, that's what I'd be setting up to. So like yeah. If I'm in that room with Jeff Fowler and he's like, what are we gonna do next? I've got an idea, man. Like that's what we gotta do. But yeah.
I think that's a great
But yeah,
idea.
no. Yeah,
But I
so
think I
and
think
I
they
know
are
you in
doing.
the Marvel.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry,
Oh
go.
yeah. I just wanted to trigger people. To be fair, like I know I feel like they are drip feeding us a lot of stuff, and I like the approach that they've taken. Um,
Yeah.
and there's even a lot of like conspiracy theories about the original Sonic design being on purpose
Uh,
to like get people
oh
talking.
yeah, I've seen those.
I
Apparently,
don't
it's
believe
not
that.
though.
I don't believe
I don't
that.
believe it.
But if
I don't
that
believe
was, that would be so clever. And
it. It
yeah,
would be really clever, but I don't because Tyson Hess, like, he was already doing stuff earlier. He's pretty much confirmed, like, yeah, nah, this is what
that
they
was it.
had planned.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, no, this is real. So yeah, no, they didn't think it through. They didn't think it through at all.
I appreciate
But
the
I'm
pivot
glad.
though.
Yeah, the pivot was respectable, and I'm glad we're at a place now where like I can be excited for what's. I
Mm,
don't love everything about these movies. I want to make it clear. I'm here for the action. I'm here for the action and just see how they adapt certain game elements. But a
yeah.
lot of human characters, I'm not really here for. I'm not gonna lie. But
Oh, they're the
you
side
know,
dishes.
yeah, kind of, yeah. Like,
They're the side
what's
dishes.
it
They're
called?
not important.
I don't mind. What's his name? Not Wade, fam. Who is it? I don't mind the gun commander. I don't mind like Jim Carrey as Eggman. But
Okay.
outside that, like, you know what I
Jim
mean?
Carrey, he's the best. His
Jim Carrey.
portrayal is
Oh,
so
and
good.
Agent Stone. Agent Stone is good too. I like him.
Okay.
His minion. I think he's funny. I like him.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
like
yeah.
I'd like to see him come step into a bigger role in a later movie. To be honest, I can see that happening.
I can see that
I
happening.
just think I think he has the potential to do it. Definitely.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, he's a good
yeah.
actor, definitely.
Yeah, that's the Sonic. I know this was about my first game. Obviously, yeah, it's a Sonic. There's a rabbit hole of things you can say.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. I believe that they will build to Metal Sonic, Mecha Sonic, sorry, and Silver, in future movies. And I personally believe they're working towards a Super Smash Bros. Movie, personally, but that's by the by.
I think this goes back to the problem with like the way they did it though. So they could do that with because the Mario movie's done its thing, right?
Hmm.
But the Sonic movie is live action. So like even trying to get that mixed with because obviously they're doing a Zelda movie, they're doing all these different game movies
Hmm.
now. But it's like because Sonic is live action, you'd have to reboot the series to throw him in there. Do you get me? Like
Okay.
it'd be and you have to redesign him. And obviously, it wouldn't be that bad. Like you could do it. It's just one is going to take a couple of years, maybe a decade even, and two, it's just like you have to reboot the series. And I do think eventually they should, but like because I mean, live action is cool, but I would have liked an animated Sonic movie, man.
Mm.
I ain't gonna lie. That's where my heart was, and we came close, but it is what it is. Ugh.
I'm hoping that genre gets destigmatized, because I do think there's an issue with animated films. I don't know whether it's like they don't sell well, or people just don't take them as seriously. But I think with Into the Spider-Verse, we're seeing that mindset change ever so slowly. So
Yeah.
I think there's still hope.
It's the old heads, man. You know,
Yeah,
like it's the no, yeah, it's the old heads. Is they look at the like if they don't see a person that looks like them on the screen, they're just like, yeah, man,
yeah,
turn it off. And it's like there's
yeah.
no value in the story outside that. And obviously the culture perpetuates it in some ways, right? But also they're trying to appeal to people like this, you know. It's the same reason why we don't see like 2D animated films or 2D animated series as much these days, right? The reason there's a big push for 3D, and I remember I was talking to one of my little sisters about this, right? And there were like two shows on screen. I forget what the shows were, but one of them was 3D and one of them was 2D. And she said, yeah, this 2D show, it kind of sucks. Like, it doesn't look good. And she just went straight to the 3D show. Animation was garbage, but it was 3D, so it appealed to her
Really.
more. So it
Mhm.
sucks because when I have experiences like that, I'm like, okay, I can see what some of these executives are saying, but it's still not cool. Do you know what I mean? It's still not,
Yeah.
it still would be nice to be able to keep like this different style of animation alive, you know?
Mm.
But yeah, no, that's that really. But yeah, no.
Yeah.
Sorry, back on the topic of favorite games. Another one that I might throw in there. It's not my first game, but it was I think the moment where I was like, okay, games can really be something special. Um, I really liked Ace Attorney growing up, right? I'm not sure how familiar you are with like the Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney series.
I'm
Um,
unfamiliar. I've never played one, but I know enough.
yeah. But basically, it's just about a lawyer, right? And I
Hmm.
remember playing it when I was young, and the way I'd never played a visual novel before. The way they told the story, the way they presented it, like the way the gameplay worked to me was really interesting. And so, like that taught me when I was young, like, oh, there's so many different ways you can actually create a game, you know, which kind of feeds. And if I'd never obviously Sonic inspires like NIXIE, the game I'm making, but also equally so Ace Attorney inspires it, right? And I don't think if I'd never played Sonic, NIXIE wouldn't be what it is. If I'd never played Ace Attorney, I don't think NIXIE would be where it is because I wouldn't have been interested in telling a story, you know?
Yeah,
So yeah, I
that's
definitely say
fair.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's Ace Attorney and Sonic Adventure 1 in your like
So,
top 5 games.
oh, wait, whoa. Uh nah, because I have to think
You
about it.
can say no. You can say no. I'm just asking the
No, I
question.
would say no. I'd say no, and no to Sonic Adventure 1, 2. Sadly,
Okay,
nah,
no, there's a
it's
ton
not.
of
That's
great
not
games
the
out
best.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, my first favorite game is The World Ends with You. Right. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but Square Enix, The World Ends with You. It's all over the kind of inspiration for NIXIE, but that game just changed my perspective. Another game where it's very story driven, but it has RPG elements. And it was another thing that told me, oh, games can not just tell stories, but they can have messages that they communicate through, like, not just the gameplay, but the narrative and all this stuff. There's so many ways that you can communicate through gameplay. Like, it's a completely different medium. And, like, the World Ends With You did that in a way that just blew my mind. So, definitely the World Ends With You. Streets of Rage 4 is a very close second there. Have you played Streets of Rage?
Yes, I've played 2 and 4. I love 4. I love them both. But yeah.
4 is so cold. 4 is so cold. 4, four really should be my favorite game. I'm not gonna lie. The one is with you, it's kind of emotional attachment. If Streets of Rage 4 had like a good story, like a not that the story is bad, but if it had like a story that really like gripped
Yeah.
me, yeah,
Yeah.
it would
Yeah.
be the best, easily. But Streets of Rage 4, beat 'em ups are like my favorite genre of game. They are so yeah, nah.
Okay.
I love arcade games. Arcade games are like my bread and butter. Just if it's like
Mm.
retro inspired pixel art, if it feels like it could have been on the GBA or the DS, I'll probably love it. I'm not gonna lie. That was that era of games for me. And I like that indie devs are slowly kind of keeping that genre of game alive. Because
Yeah.
obviously handhelds are kind of dead. You have the Switch, but the Switch is trying to run like AAA games, right? Barely.
Mhm.
But like it's
Yeah.
trying to run AAA games. Um and it feels like the indie devs are the ones that are keeping the pixel art like going. There was a
100%.
game that I saw from a friend. He was playing it. I think it was like Crypt of the Necrodancer, but it had the Legend of Zelda or something. and it was like a pixel art based game, right? And my first thought was, did an indie dev work on this? And then he said yes. And I'm like, of course they did. This is pixel art, right? But
Yeah.
that's not to say that like, oh, indie devs just make pixel art games, but more that genre of game that a lot of us grew up playing, like those kind of old school arcadey games, right? The people keeping those alive are indie game developers, because the industry has moved on from pixel art, sadly, right? Like even Mania,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Is like a
Yeah.
great example, like Sonic Mania.
Yeah.
Superstars, the game that came after, is 3D because, well, I think the director was like, well, who wants to play a pixel art game,
We
right?
need to
Which
sell.
sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it needs to sell. You get me? And so it sucks, but I think that's even just getting into the disparities between the indie scene and the AAA game development scene. One of the big things I notice is indies are more likely to play and mess around with pixel art, possibly because it's easier too. But like just these kind of lower res, shorter scale titles. Like I've seen Bomber Cyberpunk, like all these kind of retro Dreamcast-esque games. Whereas the AAA industry is just like pushing, they're just pushing graphics, but like that's a big part
I
of it. Like they're
mean,
pushing
yeah.
big graphics, pushing scale, spectacle. Like
Yeah.
it has to be like a movie,
Move.
you know?
Boom. Yeah.
Um,
100%.
and yeah, so I definitely think that's a disconnect there. Sorry. So the Warden's review, Streets of Rage 4. I'm gonna say it because it's part of the childhood, right? San Andreas, right?
Okay.
GTA San Andreas. That was a game I grew up on, and I have a lot of memories playing with my brother and sister, right? We probably shouldn't have been playing the game, but obviously, like, yeah, the game, it has a soft spot in my heart because it reminds me of playing games with my family, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a weird one, but yeah, that's a good
No,
one.
it's not. It's not because that was a time where, like, all of the games were at a bubbling part, and there wasn't really a difference between indie or AAA. All the
Yeah,
games were
yeah.
coming out on the hot consoles. The PS2, in my opinion, still the greatest gaming library of all time. That
Oh, yeah.
tore apart all of the gaming markets. If you didn't have a PS2, you didn't have much to talk about on the
You didn't
playground.
have nothing.
So yeah,
You didn't have
so all them
nothing.
games, San Andreas,
The
GTA
last
3,
game to drop on the
yeah, man.
PS2, I think, was like FIFA 14. Yes.
Mm.
Do you know how long that? I forget when the PS2 came out, but it was early 2000s, definitely.
Yeah, PS2 was
Console
2000.
outlived so much.
Yeah,
Crazy. It
that's
outlived.
that's
I
crazy.
think nah. So I think FIFA 14 was the last game to be on the PS2. I might be bugging out on that, but that console, I can't knock anyone for saying the PS2 is the greatest console of all time because it kind of is. You know, it kind of is. The library was unmatched because it lasted so long.
Yeah,
And if you
best
wanted to reach
selling.
people, even Sonic did this eventually. He was like, "Look, man, I can't just be putting stuff on my own console." I mean, obviously the Dreamcast died,
That's what.
but like, yeah, but it's like a lot of people, and this is something I noticed with Sonic Heroes, right? A lot of people's first game, Sonic game, at least in this kind of new generation, was Sonic Heroes because it was on the PS2. Do
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
So yeah, PS2 had a big launch. This is the game. There you go. Sonic Riders, right?
Okay.
Might sound crazy. Sonic Riders is up there because I used to go to Nigeria a lot, right? And my dad had this. So we had a PS3, and my dad had this thing where it's like you're not allowed to take the PS3 to Nigeria. We can't for whatever reason. We can take the PS2, but we couldn't take the PS3. Don't know why, right? But for him, it's just like I guess one was less valuable than the other to him. So it's just like,
Yeah,
hey
yeah,
man,
yeah.
so it's something happens to it, it is what it is. But I mean, the PS2 had good games. And so the game that I'd always play was Sonic Riders, right? And obviously I played Mario Kart, played Need for Speed. I'd never played Sonic like something like Sonic Riders, right? The style, the music, like the trick system, the drifts, it just I was like, there's nothing exactly like this. And this is just a big thing with Sonic, right? There's a lot of little things in that series where it's just like, there's nothing like this. And you didn't do anything with this again. Obviously, the Rider
Mm,
series died out with like Zero Gravity and Free Riders. But, because Riders was such a unique game, it kind of inspired me to add some of that stuff to NIXIE. And that's why she's riding a hoverboard in NIXIE, because I was like, Sonic Riders is so cold, right? And it would be cool to kind of try to adapt some of that love that I have for the game into the game. And so I was like, yeah, give her a hoverboard and let her like do skateboarding tricks. And speaking personally, like I skateboard a lot too, or I used to. So it kind of just meshed together quite well. I'm not sure if I have a fifth, but if I had to throw one, I guess Hi-Fi Rush. Have you heard of Hi-Fi
Okay.
Rush?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm playing that now. That game is incredible. So yeah, I'm gonna make. I guess number five is Hi-Fi Rush for now. But yeah, no, those are
Okay.
those are my top five. I know it took a while, but like we got there eventually, you know.
I mean, I get it when you're talking about something that you're so passionate about. Like you can just get carried away, and
Yeah,
that's
no,
something
always.
that don't feel any type of way about. I love that. It's a very varied top five list. I've not heard anyone put Streets of Rage 4 in their top five, so you're a unique person for that. I love that
That's
game
the goal.
personally.
It should be. It's number
Yeah,
one. It's
it's
really
so good.
number one. It's just
Like,
yeah.
yeah, it's the best in the franchise easily. It's the best of the genre, I would say, just because it's got
Yeah,
all the capabilities and it has the retro art style, which I really like that you picked up on that point. And I'm sure because you're a dev, you notice things like that. Um, the fact that people who grew up with that era, they don't want to lose it. So you're seeing that in all the stuff that they're
yeah,
putting out. So yeah, I really appreciate that, man, because I love all the pixel art stuff, like all the games that look like they kind of belong in the 90s or the noughties, but they've restored
yeah.
that feeling in a good way. Yeah, I'm a big fan of
Because
that.
they're gonna die. Like it feels unless obviously we're in like a big remaster culture now, like a remake remaster, which is its own conversation to be honest, right? But like obviously that like era of specifically like it's handheld Dreamcast, that kind of GameCube, Dreamcast, DS, um, GBA, like Super Nintendo, that kind of era of games. So like it can't like they're not making those anymore. Just to
Mm.
be like they're just not. Um Something I did talk to Sosa about this once. I was like, why now this is obviously the counterpoint, right? And this is why we're kind of seeing the pixel art be kind of phased out in some ways, I think. I spoke to Sosa, I was like, why does no one make any pixel art games anymore? And it's like, yeah, it's because it's too expensive. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Because and it's hard, right? And this kind of goes into a big thing that I think a lot of people misunderstand about game dev is that it's ridiculously expensive. Like you pay for the soundtrack, you pay for the
Yeah.
animations, you pay
Mhm.
for if you've got a programmer, you pay for the programmer, you pay for the character art. Like if you got story cutscenes, you got to pay for that too, and you got to animate it, and you got to program it and make it work. And it's just there's so much that can go wrong, and there's so much that you need to get done, right? Even I had to design a character this year called Emmy, right? So had to pay to get the character designed, finalize the design. Then design's been finalized. I go to story artist LJ, incredible guy. Um, I ask him to draw out the character so that I can use them in game. Then I go to the pixel artist, Miz. I'm like, okay, cool. Now I need you to do pixel art of this character so they can walk around in the world. And that's like 3 stages already, just for
Mm.
one character. And obviously, funds aren't always just flying out of the sky in it. So it's like
Mm.
that's a hard thing to kind of I think for a lot of people to grapple with. Just you know that that process of making a game is a long one. And sometimes I do wish that like audiences were more clued up on like how long and how difficult it is to do these things. But equally so, um, I always have to kind of remind myself of what it's like to be a consumer. And the 8-year-old kid that's watching the show, like they don't know how hard the animators had to work to make it. But does it make sense for me to go up to them and be like, hey man, they worked really hard on this show? Do you know? Like they're just gonna think
Yeah,
what they think.
absolutely not.
And
Yeah.
so you almost have to strike that balance sometimes. Speaking personally as a dev, where it's like, man, it would be nice for people to be more educated on these things, but also it's an unrealistic expectation, and you want people to just engage with the art as they would, you know. And so you have to kind of find that balance between the both of them, and that can be difficult to do, but it's something that you have to do. So yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
that's a spill
No,
on
no, no,
game dev.
no. And that perfectly leads us to where this pod is centered around. How do you go from playing games, growing up with games around you, playing them with your siblings, to that light bulb moment of, oh, I could make one of these. I would like to make a game. And tell us more about NIXIE. You said it's based in South London. If you want to say the specific area, that's cool. And
Yeah.
then it's about someone who uses the food bank and gets spirits. So I'd like to touch on that later, but tell me about NIXIE the game and how you went from playing games to becoming a dev.
I think, and this is why I think it was important for me to bring up Ace Attorney, right? So like before because I cover a lot of like Boondocks, the Boondocks, right? I cover a lot of that
Mm.
on my channel, right? But before I did that, I covered a lot of Ace Attorney, man. And Ace Attorney, Phoenix Wright, this detective series, I thought it was so cool. Like the puzzle solving element, I think the way they told the story was really good. And so I was like, I kind of want to make something like that. So NIXIE started originally as almost this kind of Ace Attorney inspired visual novel. And with time, and this actually gets into my personal thoughts, right? This is the actual story of it. Um, Obviously, when you write detective stories, you almost frame a lot of the perspective around, like, the police. You frame it a lot around, like, oh yeah, like, we're trying to solve this case and get this guy locked up and etc. And I realized a bit into it. I'm like, I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? That's not something I'm actually interested in doing,
Yeah.
right? And so the story kind of shifted then into being more about the person that the person that the case would follow. And that's how it ended up being more about Fiona, the girl with the handcuff, right? And yeah, the kind of I guess the inspiration for that was Ace Attorney. So originally I wanted to make a visual novel, and obviously that changed, and The World Ends With You came, right? And obviously The World Ends With You and Sonic Riders and etc. I was inspired by Sonic Riders. I wanted to do the hoverboard thing, but The World Ends With You has a very unique gameplay system that, again, and this goes back to this big thing with indie dev, and I think it's important for devs to keep this in mind, right? The World Ends With You is a gameplay system that has never been done again. Like, it's one and done. It was done once, never again. But it's also really good, and a lot of people know it's really good, right? And so in my head, I'm like, let me take these things that are like bygone relics of the past, right? That I'm in love with, that are really niche and don't really have any. They have strong like communities around them. Like there's a competitive scene for Sonic Riders, for instance, right? Like, yeah, nah, crazy. Like they play for money. Like, yeah, I'm not good enough to play against them, but yeah.
Yeah.
But almost taking these things that are very niche but worked and were really effective, and I think more people can and should be exposed to, trying to kind of recreate those systems. And that's kind of how NIXIE evolved into this kind of love letter to not only my favorite games, but I guess feeding into your point, like Black British culture and whatnot. So NIXIE, then it kind of feeds into me giving like a description of the game, right? NIXIE is about this young woman called Fiona. Fiona is around 20 years old, like 20, 21, give or take. And she runs this kind of soup kitchen, right, with her friend. And it shuts down for story related reasons that I can't disclose. And she learns randomly, right, that she can pass into the spiritual realm. So when she passes into the spiritual realm, she can read people's thoughts and you can hear their emotions, you can see what they're thinking while they're having conversations. And London, speaking personally, I think this. London, we're not very anti, but we're very passive. And so people don't always communicate what they're really feeling. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah. I
Very,
agree.
I would say anti. Anti isn't the word I'm looking for, but it's also the word I'm looking for. You know? But yeah, no. And I said, you can take this and have like a commentary on just not just like London culture, but also like Black British culture and how that intersects. So one of the arguments that they actually have in the game is whether or not like MLE or Caribbean culture has been appropriated by Londoners, right? And that's like a
Mm.
big thing. And so that was like a big thing in the game. And so I think that's some of that Boondocks influence there, right? Where I'm like, I kind of want to comment and talk about these things that we don't really get to see talk much in the media or in anything
Yeah,
because
yeah.
there's a big fixation on Americanization. But we are seeing that change with like Supercell and whatnot. So like things are changing, but yeah. So I would say NIXIE is kind of about celebrating games that I grew up with that were quite niche, but also kind of exploring like Black British culture and like London, I guess, from a Black British lens. And yeah. That's
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's a great description of the game, but yeah, I'll go
No,
with
it
that.
is. It is definitely.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that because obviously being Black British as well, it's very cool to see our culture be represented in video games, and we've
Mm.
not really seen that, especially over the last 2-3 decades, where we've seen this real boom of like information and entertainment. Like you said, everything is very Americanized, and it's kind of weird. So like when I guess non-English traditional speakers are trying to learn English, it's all American source material that they're using, like as opposed to
Yeah.
British English, which where the language comes from. But I am, well, I'm a big fan of you putting across your perspective or the black British perspective into this, and I'm glad you shouted out Supercell as well. That's one of the the great pieces of media now that is trying to put black British
Yeah.
stories into a very popular medium of like superheroes. And I saw one of the interviews that you gave before, and I'm I'm very I don't know what the word is, but I am interested in that. You said this
Oh.
isn't a fighting game with just black characters, right? This is a black
Ah.
British video game, and I really appreciate that because it's the story is centered around the characters, and it's not just, oh, there's one black guy here and
Yeah.
he's part robot, or you don't see his family. Like it's like I know you said EastEnders as well in that interview, but it is kind of like world building where all of these central characters are going to be 3D and they're going to have families, they're going to have motivations, and it's going to feel very real and not token, you know. So I'm
Yeah, I
very
agree.
happy about that, and I'd like to know more about, I guess, your inspirations in terms of putting the social commentary in, because I've seen like you seem very wised up to like the real world darkness, and you're putting a lot of the social commentary in and political statements in there. So how have you determined which ones you want to use in your games and which ones to not include?
I think I kind of just look at like the conversation that I do see around me or I saw around me a lot growing up. So like, okay, here's a really big one, and it's easy and it's messy, but like there's a way to go about it because I was working on a video with someone about this. So one of the big divides that I sometimes see is that kind of Africans versus people from the Caribbean thing.
Mhm.
That's a big thing here, right? Like that is diaspora was this, that, and the third. There's almost this like I'm not gonna say unspoken animosity. I don't want to use that word, but
It was
more
very
this
spoken
there's that
when I was growing up.
yeah, maybe
It
maybe
was
it's
very
spoken. Yeah,
spoken.
you know, fair. Very spoken. Yeah, let's be honest. People say, you know what's funny, right? I see in that note, right? Sometimes people, like British people, they come up to me and be like, "Yeah, man, I like your videos. You need to be meaner. You need to be meaner about certain things." You know what I mean?
Yo, I'm
Like
not trying to start beef.
in the vein of like Americanization, right? Like
Mm.
sometimes they're like, "Yeah, but David, you could be meaner. Like you need to tell these men how it is." And I'm like, you know what I mean? And it's not that I don't feel the frustration sometimes, but it's about like, framing is everything. How do we have this conversation? So say in
Yeah.
that vein, right, choosing to want to explore that conversation. Um, I kind of draw from different people that I have spoken to about it and how maybe like that. So one perspective I got was that there's a hypersexualization of uh, Jamaican women or people or women from the Caribbean, but equally so that maybe that there's more colorism on the side of people that are African or people are Nigerian or what have you, right? And so kind of trying to look at just taking those experiences that I've had with people and talking to them and listening to them and going, okay, frame a story around this and what are you trying to say. Ultimately the message is, we all need to come together and what have you, but what makes up the sandwich? The message is
Mm.
just the message, right? Like some of my favorite pieces of media, the message is very simple, like kumbaya, let's all come together, but it's a lot more like what are the pieces that go into making this sandwich, and that's
Yeah.
kind of uh I think the big thing. So I guess I choose based on the core theme, and because the core theme is like found family and communication and what have you, that helps me pick and choose the things that I kind of want to draw from, right? Because yeah, so I think that's like a strong answer to that. But yeah.
No, I think it is, and it's very real. Anyone who grew up in the time that we did and in the areas that we did knows that, those are two massive points of culture. The Black Africans, the Black
Yeah.
Caribbeans, and I mean, sometimes, another guest said this in another episode. Sometimes people need something to be against to have that sense of community.
Yeah.
So, the one
Yeah.
person goes me versus him. The two of us are like, oh, us two versus him, that other guy. And then the three of them are like, okay, us three
Yeah.
against that fourth guy. And it's like, wherever that common bond is, they will find it. And I think that this game will go away towards shattering that us against them mentality and just bringing
Yeah.
us together.
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, I hope that I don't think the game's going to be that grand, but I do hope that message is communicated. And on that point that you said, I think it's a good point, right? I think if you build community around opposition, once the opposition is gone, you have no community. There's nothing there.
Thanks.
So it's like it's important to build community around like shared experience and like, just commonality and, our different lives and how we can support each other. I think there's more to building community than, all right, who are we against? Who we
Mhm.
gonna get? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like there's a lot more to it than that to me. So I think you're 100% right and bang on the money. So yeah, that is something I kind of want to explore. And I think again, going back to this point where you get to kind of dive into people's minds and make sense of why they're thinking the things they're thinking. So an element of the game is you can dive into someone's mind and either have a conversation with them in their head to figure out what it is that they're actually thinking, but also you can fight like a spirit inside their head that's maybe making them think negatively or think
Mm.
about things a certain way. And through doing that, you can help save them, and that kind of creates a gameplay loop where you're kind of saving more and more people in the area, right? You're almost playing a bit of a spiritual superhero, that's, I guess. So that's what I could word it. Think
Yeah.
superstar, but yeah, like yeah, I don't know. But yeah, no. So that's kind of a big thing for me. So I hope, yeah, that's kind of how I pick and choose. And there's a lot to I go back to it. There's a lot to say. There's a lot to say.
There is.
All right, I'll give one more. Sorry, because my head is everywhere.
No, do it. Do
Um,
it.
you uniformity, right? So like
Mm.
in obviously secondary school, we went secondary school, right? Secondary school had us all running in uniform, right? There was fun, isolation, this, that. I'm not even gonna get into that, right? Some of the punishment systems, personally, I would like to get into. 'Cause I've got some personal experiences. I need to thingy, right? I don't think I have the scope for that. But something that struck me is that obviously a lot of like youngers have to wear school uniform, right? It's a big part of their upbringing, what have you. And what you find is obviously we get into society, and a lot of people wear very similar things, right?
Mhm.
Every guy, like even I've got it, the night tech, right? Every guy
Yeah.
has it. Do you know what I mean? Like we all got it, right? We all got that one tracksuit in our back. Do you know what I mean? We've all got it, right? Every girl I know, every black girl I know has like the puffer jacket thing. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
and so something I've kind of wanted to comment on at one point was how maybe we're conditioned into uniformity from a very young age. And so these are like things where it's like these aren't Black American issues. These are Black British things that you can actually talk about, right? And we can actually like go, hey, like, isn't it funny that there's a connection between this and that? Isn't it interesting that like Africans and Caribbeans like argue so much? But we're all just all Black people in the diaspora trying to survive in the UK.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting that MLE is appropriated by blah 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 blah? Like and all that, and so it's kind of taking those real conversations that we have every day and we just kind of put it into a game and you just get to see it play out. And I think that's going to be, and that is the one thing that I do sometimes look at like Black British media and go, it's missing something. And the thing I think it's missing sometimes is a bit of that social commentary and a bit more of that nuanced social commentary. But it's
Yeah.
not obviously stuff is good. Like I'm happy. Like Superstar's great. What's it called? I love Top Boy. But yeah, no,
Mm.
obviously we want think, yeah, Top Boy's sick. But we I think because and this goes I was really inspired by the Boondocks. I'm Magruder, like one of my inspirations in a lot of ways growing up. So I think getting to do something in that vein, obviously maybe not as crazy as Aaron in some ways, but getting to do something in that vein is
Yeah.
really exciting and really cool. So yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely agree to that. I watched Boondocks very late relative to when it came out, and there was just something about
Yes,
it
I'm
that
so hard.
just felt, so good. Like it was it's weird social commentary, but also took the piss out of everything. So like it was serious, but it wasn't serious at
Yeah,
the same time. It hit the nail right on the head every time with like the amount of sensitivity to handle something, but also the way
yeah,
of doing the over the top craziness. Um, it was I'm so glad that that came out. I think the first 3 seasons were amazing. Um,
yeah.
and
I like specifying first 3 seasons. I respect it. Keep going. Like,
sometimes I
yeah.
can say something without saying what I need to say. You know what
Yeah, no, I respect it. I respect it. I like the. I just want you to know I clocked it. Don't worry.
I
Yeah,
mean? um, another thing that I caught on with your point was there is a strength in the fact that we are telling, or you are telling, Black British stories, in that it doesn't need to follow an American formula. We are not trying to adapt something that has worked somewhere else. There are things that
yeah,
we have that we can use to our advantage. There are things that showcase just how different we are to the American experience. And again, the uniform experience is something that is perfect. It's a perfect little example there that you brought up, that we can use that to our advantage. Or
yeah.
the fact that they all had us with the level 1 trims, and then we all got suspended if we had night ticks.
There's a bar. Yeah, the night. Okay, so here's the thing with NIXIE, right? So there's a character in the game.
Yeah.
I made him. Don't ask why. He looks like Jay-Z. He's not Jay-Z, but he looks like Jay-Z, right? Um, I made
Woof.
him the barber
All
because
right.
I got a barber. Man. I ain't gonna say his name, but I got a barber, right? And he was messing up my lineup for years, and I was so mad.
Ah.
I said, man, you know what, man? I got a little something for you, and so I just wrote him in the game, and now he's a villain. He's one of the villains because it's like, and the thing is, he would be doing the. He'd be in the, he'd get a phone call, be like, "Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I'm free. Yeah."
uh,
There was one point, yeah, they were having a chess game, right? Just to the left, they're having a chess game. The board was out. It's like, yeah, wait, David, let me just make my play. You're cutting my hair. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of wanted to like, obviously, there's strong emotions there. You can't do anything about it, but
yeah, not the
I
time.
wanted
Come on.
to. Yeah, like obviously time's a thing. But I wanted to put that in the game because again, these are like real experiences that people could relate to and understand. Even the more we talk, the more I was like, there were ideas I had to scrap.
Mm,
I wanted a level in Carnival, right? I can't do that.
that'd be so
I
sick.
wanted to have I wanted it so bad.
That'd be
But I
so
was just like,
sick.
nah, it doesn't fit the scope. But it would have been so cool.
Mm,
Like from cause, and again, that's a big thing, trying to find creative levels in like London, right? Because again, it's always New York City, Shibuya, this, that,
mm,
like Brooklyn, like it's just and when we go to London, it's like look at the Big Ben and look at the red telephone pole. No one even uses that thing. No
yeah.
one even uses it.
Hey, they've been
Like
dead for
so it's
15
just
years.
yeah. So it's one of those ones where it's like I want to yeah, I want this to be set in like South London, but I want this to show a different side of look, because
Yeah.
I'm not even Mr. Like, oh yeah, go the, like we're British, pride. I'm not even that. But more that I just want to show a different side, a different perspective, a different like set of eyes on the world that we're not
Yeah.
usually seeing. Because whenever they go to the Sonic movie trailer did this. Didn't Knuckles jump off Big Ben? But like, do you know what I mean? Like,
I saw
it's not,
Tower
and it's
Bridge.
not
Yeah.
even yeah from Power Bridge, yeah. And it's like, it's not even a thing where it's like, oh yeah, like iconic locations,
Yeah.
monuments.
Yeah.
I'm mad, right? But it's more like there's more to show than this. You know,
Yeah.
I want to show the sports, right? I want to show carnival, right? Maybe I want to show a bit of the black church, like this stand up. There's a lot of things that you can actually do, right?
Yeah.
That, yeah, like, and I would like to see more of that, even just Black British media generally, right? If I'm just to make a general point, I would just like to see more of that, you know?
Yeah. Of
Because
course.
to me, I'm not gonna say that's where the money is, but that's what interests me, not
Yeah.
just, we're gonna do the Black American thing, but we're gonna do it this way. Like, no, like there's stuff here,
Yeah.
you can actually, uh, you know? So
Yeah,
yeah,
no, for sure. Yeah. I feel like what your answer said to me was um the we could be looking at the same thing, but one answer is like someone who just looked it up on Wikipedia. Oh, here's a
yeah,
red phone box. Oh, here's Big Ben. oh, here's Tower
Yeah, no,
Bridge that everyone thinks is London Bridge. And the second part is like people who actually have been there or have at least talked to people from the area. Oh, show us some Morleys. Oh, show us a red bus.
fam,
You
four
know?
wings and chips. No one's
Yeah.
like, even but do you see what I mean? You bringing that, so someone that's American maybe watching this doesn't even understand
They
what we're
won't get
talking
it.
about, right?
But
But
again, it's
the
not
second you
fraudulent.
said that, I was like, oh yeah, like you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Fam, okay, I'll tell you another thing. There's a joke in the game, right? So back in secondary school, something I remember was there were a couple of men that would go to like Asda near like Old Kent Road, right? Or Asda near like Peckham, near Peckham or Old Kent Road, one of them, right? And they basically the cookies were like £1, right? And there were 4 cookies inside there, right? People would go in there, they would steal the packet of cookies, one, or they buy it or they'd steal it, right? And then they'll go to school and they'd sell the cookies one for 50p, right? And so that's how they make their bet. Did you ever have the people selling in school?
Oh yeah, 100% entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. You're smiling like, yeah, it was me.
yeah.
I was selling.
I wasn't too savvy, but like I rated them because business.
Yeah. I never did it again. But I wrote that joke in again as another like for the people that get it, their eyes are gonna be like,
Yeah,
oh
yeah,
yeah, people did used to do that. So it's
yeah.
just yeah, man. I'm sorry, I got hyped because I was like, yeah, 4 wings of chips.
Nah,
I used to
that's
put that
part
in
of
the
the
game.
culture. Like I know exactly what you
Yeah.
mean. Like I remember the breakaways and like there'd always be some snitch here, snitching to the teachers, ruining businesses, ruining black businesses. I always
Um,
thought, why do we care? Like people are still gonna buy food from the canteen. Like, don't worry.
yeah, no, people
I
just
didn't
be
get it, but like, yeah, I
yeah.
always remember teachers hating it because if to me it felt like, oh, they're making money in our places of work and we're not getting a cut. So
Yeah, oh
yeah,
my days. Yeah, but that's slimy, man. Leave them alone. Let them.
yeah,
Again,
I
I didn't
mean,
do it, but shout out to them.
yeah, I
Sometimes
thought
they'd
it
have
was
little hustlers. Sometimes
yeah,
they start hiring people. They'd be like, "Yeah, man, if you could
yeah.
sell during this, because there'll be 2 lunches." So he'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
"Yeah, you sell during this lunch, and I'll sell during this lunch." It's just, yeah, like operation. People were setting up mini operations over
It's
this.
business.
So,
I mean, technically, it's
um,
legal stuff, man. I mean, they could have been selling worse things. So
yeah,
it's
no,
all
for real. I'm
right.
like, yeah, you could have. It could have got dicey, you know. Like, he's they're doing their thing.
Yeah,
But yeah, nah. So yeah, just going back to overarching point, these experiences we can actually like put them into stuff. And why not a game? You know, I can't make a
yeah.
movie. Like,
Not yet.
yeah, not yet. I mean, yeah, if the right people come, maybe.
Yeah.
But till
Like,
then, like I
mm,
think this is cool. You know, like and going back to what you kind of said about Boondocks, right? What made Boondocks so interesting to me was that it was like the culmination of a bunch of different things, right? Because it was like Black American commentary, but it was also like there were like anime references in there. There was a
mm,
Mortal Kombat reference in there. There's like mad deep cut hip hop references in
yeah.
there. Like it was kind of layering everything, right? And that's even yeah, like going back to the game, like you want to layer things appropriately. Like, I want a Mapiano in the game, for instance. Like you want to be not for real because you want to be able to create like something that feels authentic and real. Like shout out to
Mm,
Supercell, and I did notice this with the first episode um what's it called? The licensed music they got was really good. Like I was like,
mm,
yeah, no, I can actually recognize this music. Like this is what people, yeah, I
yeah.
heard this.
That's
So yeah, no,
yeah, yeah. Straight away, again, that comparison of someone who's just doing something British versus someone who is ingrained in the culture or at least knows enough. Yeah,
yeah,
big
and
fan of that.
that's really important. And again, I don't. That's another feeding into another thing. I don't know everything, right? Sometimes I have to lean on. I sometimes have to lean on people. I wasn't. I'm not sure if you do it, but like, there was a point where I think I was voice directing, and it was one of the voice actors. It was either Fiona or Trey, Nakeem or Amina. And I was like, instead of saying here, I need you to say hair, right? Because some people say hair instead of thing.
That is a
These
very
little things. Yeah, these
yeah.
little things. You got to catch people's like things. So something like I had a guy, his name was Michael, right? Every time it's like, yeah, over here, pass the ball over here. And it's like, here, but it's like different
Yeah,
people, like we all say it different ways, you get me? So it's just, yeah, man, like that's the fun part. Do you know what I mean? That I can't go back. I have to keep going back to that point. That's the fun part. It's picking up on the things that we don't normally pick up on and
mm,
going, all right, now let me write that down. Like,
yeah.
oh
Or it's
yeah.
like
Sorry, I know we went on.
Oh no,
Yeah.
no worries. It's like you spotted things that are normal to us, but you know when they translate to the screen, it's gonna be, oh, that's weird. Why are
Yeah.
they saying hair?
Yeah,
Oh, that's weird. Why are they saying ox? That's weird. But like,
yeah, no.
it's a valid way of speaking.
Yeah, no, I get you. And so, so it's so important to me. And just to me, those are the moments where it feels the most real and it feels the most authentic.
Absolutely.
When I'm like I'm not you taking from my own experiences, when I'm taking from the things I'm hearing and I'm seeing. There's a fun. There's still ideas running through my head right now that I don't even want to get to, but like,
Hey, you know,
yeah.
that's why we have sequels. When NIXIE 2 and 3 comes out, we'll see all of these these Easter eggs come to
Let's see
fruition.
how this Nixie let's see how this Nixie does before Nixie 2, Nixie 3.
Of
Before these
course.
guys kill me. Okay.
So
I
of
know,
course,
you know what's
yeah,
funny?
go on.
Yeah, sorry. I was just gonna say that I know that you also brought up like the Kickstarter, right? And that was like a big thing that we spoke about like a bit earlier, or you kind of alluded to. Obviously like Kickstarter, what helped me in relation to Nixie was obviously I had a YouTube channel, so I had a bit of an audience kind of already built around these things, right? But the big thing is, and this is something I regret a little more, because once I was funded, I was like, yeah, whatever, right? You gotta chill, man. If you don't feel like, man, I'm advertising way too much, right? You're not advertising. That's what someone told me, and it's sad, but it's true, right? It's like you gotta be like your not your biggest fan, but pretty much, yeah, you gotta be
Yeah.
your biggest fan. Like, this is so sick. You man have to check this out. Like, you have to be that person, definitely. And I can be someone that doesn't, I'm gonna say a very ashamed person, but I don't like to be too loud about what I'm doing. When you
Mm.
got a Kickstarter, you gotta be loud. If you, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's no room to be meek when you got a Kickstarter. There's no time for that. Like, the other thing I also say about Kickstarter is that Kickstarter take more of your money than you might think. I think Kickstarter took like, so we raised like 11K. Kickstarter took like 3K, and I was like, damn. Do you know
Dang.
what I mean? But yeah, nah. So make sure that uh after you're funded, this was my mistake. After you're funded, keep going, man. Like, keep
Yeah.
going. Push, keep shilling for it, keep pushing it to as many people as possible, and also recognize that depending on the scope of your project, the Kickstarter will just help you build the building blocks for what you're doing, but you may still have to do some work later down the line. But so assuming you're ready to do that work after the backing, it should be a non-issue. And that's kind of where I'm at right now with NIXIE, where like, okay, we've gone through the money, we've got a really strong foundation. Now it's just about cleaning up a few things and getting those few things done. So yeah,
Oh,
it's one of
sick.
those.
Yeah. And yeah, congrats on smashing the Kickstarter. I saw you like you doubled your initial goal, so I was like, that's a
Yeah,
very
no.
successful campaign.
Made me happy,
Quickly,
made me happy.
of course, yeah, no, it's cause to celebrate. And I'm learning that point of if you don't if you don't think you're advertising enough, you probably aren't. Like, you have to be in these
Yeah.
people's faces. Um,
And I'm bad
but-
with this, by the way. I
mm,
don't be doing this as much as I should. But like I've learned tricks from watching other people do it. And yeah, you gotta be you you
yeah,
you don't yeah, you kind of have to be a bit annoying with it. Like you have to be like, oh, he's on the feed again, like
yeah,
doing it, like, yeah, you gotta be that guy, right?
yeah.
Because
Yeah, you
yeah,
really have
nah,
to until we get to the
yeah,
point where you got people doing that for you, or, getting
yeah.
bare
And
retweets.
even
Like, you
then,
have to promote your
retweet
stuff.
all of that because
Mm,
that's another way to. So another cheat code is like repost. You have to repost when people like post your stuff, if that makes sense. Like
yeah,
keep doing that. Every time it's posted, repost it, man. Like put that on, like this, that, because that builds. It's a way of reposting your post. Like it's a way of the post looking new, if that makes sense. So you just
yeah.
keep that cycle. So something I did when I dropped, I'm not sure if you saw the trailer, but when I dropped the trailer on Twitter, right? And whenever someone quote retweeted it or like said something good about it in the quote tweets, retweet,
Boom.
retweet, retweet, retweet. Could just create this big loop, just this big loop of like people talking about the game, and it fed the conversation more and more. So definitely just feed the conversation also. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
and know your niche and all this. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not a marketing guy. Do you know what I mean? Like,
No, no,
yeah,
it's very right, but again, it's all organic. Um,
yeah,
I wanted to take the culture from London and bring it back to Africa, because another major point that I noticed with your game was how you are tackling and introducing non-Christian religion / spirituality into the game. So
Yes.
talk to me about that, because there's a heavy stigmatization, and we all know who's to blame for that, the colonizers. So how do you go about going, oh, we're actually going to embrace the roots and try to re-educate regarding this, because it's a very heavy topic.
It's heavy.
Yeah,
I
it
was
is.
damn, you asking me this? Okay, cool. Let me lock in. You know when you gotta lean forward during the game. Like, let me take this to what's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay, cool. All right, the demonization of African spirituality. This is okay. If you want this, this is what you. All right, cool. The demonization of African spirituality was something I noticed growing up, like, and it always weirded me out a bit. 'Cause in my head, I was just like, well, this is just, isn't this our culture? Isn't this what we're doing? What interests me is one, some of the ways that our culture we kind of intersperse our culture into Christianity anyway. I'm not sure if you don't that, but like that kind of how that because obviously there's a lot of a lot of Christian Africans, a lot of Christian Black people in the UK, what have you, right? One of the ways is that like our culture is kind of interspersed in that in a lot of ways, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is just kind of trying to be a bit like sincere about it. So NIXIE, without spoiling too much, is a story a bit about like spiritual security, like an imposter syndrome almost. I'm not sure, and I'm sure everyone's had this experience in church without again, no, that's I'm going to not spoil the story, but I'm just going to go and communicate the point. That experience in church or that experience in a spiritual space where it's like, hey, you're supposed to be doing this and you're supposed to look like this and it's supposed to act like this. And something I always try to say, if we were all supposed to act the same, there wouldn't be 12 disciples, you know? A lot of religion, yeah, you know what I mean? And like a lot of what we're taught growing up is that religion has to be very homogenous, right? It has to be and we're all going to be this one thing, or we're all going to fit into this one box. When a lot of it is quote unquote like a personal relationship and building that personal relationship, um, and figuring like spirituality needs to serve you, not do you know what I mean? Like it has to serve your spirit. That's what I'm a big believer in that. And so you have this character Fiona, right? And so this is like a big story of the game. And she can see this character called Emmy, right? And no one else can see her. No one else can see, well, no one else can see them. No one else can see Emmy, right? So Trey can't see Emmy. No one else in the game can see Emmy. But Emmy tells her things. She'll be like, oh, yeah, watch out for this. Be careful of this, etc., etc. And so she denies the existence of Emmy. It's like, Emmy's not a real thing. She's not thingy because no one else can see Emmy, right?
Right.
And so a lot of it is about this idea that again, going back to spiritual security, it's like no one else needs to see the things that you can see, but you need to you can't be so insecure about being the only one that sees something that you don't like double down on that. You don't like latch onto that thing that you have, right? And so it's kind of supposed to be like because a lot of and this goes into like a big thing, right? A lot of stories and messages around like religion and spirituality tend to be either one, the God's not real, or B, like and then God saved them all in the end. I think that's kind of lame, right? I think Nollywood movies, seen a lot of Nollywood movies, right? So
Yeah.
I think those are both like really lame ways to tell the story, right? No, I need to do a Nollywood movie thing. Ah, anyway, yeah, but I thought it would be more interesting to tell a story where we're basically saying, like, you need to find confidence in yourself spiritually, right? And whatever spiritually works for you, that works for you. So Trey uses this telekinetic turntable and he uses music to get in tune with his spirit because that's what works for him, right? Fiona, for instance, uses Emmy, right? And so there's all these different, and obviously like Orisha and like Spirit, well, that's getting into a lot of stuff in terms of but I don't want to like word vomit you with all the history stuff. But the main message and the core thing behind that is just going to be like find security in what you believe and don't let your insecurity of not being the same as the next person or the next person on the left or the right deter you from your own what does spiritually serve you, and that's kind of what that element of the story is supposed to be because I think there's a lot of like spiritual shame right in our community and this feeds into like a general thing. It's a lot of spiritual shame, man. Even to this day I feel spiritual shame, if you are like if you're growing up in a strongly religious home and like you don't see the way that you act being especially and a lot of black women go through this, right? And this is going for an whole thing, right? But like and you don't see yourself the exact same as maybe parental figure or someone else in your life that is like spiritually aware and spiritually there, you can start to have imposter syndrome and doubt yourself, right? And be like, am I even like thingy? And it's just make sense of that for yourself, right? And that's kind of the big thing. It's kind of supposed to be empowering in that sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think I went on for a while.
No, no, not at all. Because again, like I said, it's a very heavy topic. So no, I
Yeah,
appreciate the insight there, and I'm glad that it's not necessarily just a I guess a spiritual political message in that way. It's more of a kind of
yeah,
a choose your own
yeah.
identity.
Like just what makes sense for you, right?
Yeah,
And oh, and that's not to say that, like, obviously, different doctrines have their own rules and principles and what have you. It's not to discount any of that. It's just that everyone's spirituality is their own. Everyone's relationship with God, if you do believe in one, is your own. So find peace with that. Don't constantly try to find your shape in other people, because then that will just leave you confused. But if you can find peace with your own spirit and what have you, like all this stuff, um, like yeah, that's where you will find peace. That's where you'll find confidence, and yeah, that's the message of NIXIE.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, and it's a great message. I think it's something that you could apply to anyone and everyone. It's essentially,
yeah,
be the source of your own validation. Don't find your validation in other
that's a good
people
way to
or
word
in
it.
metrics or in things. Find that in yourself so that that source never runs out. If it's people, hey, people are weird. Like people,
Yeah,
faith in
no,
you.
people can be mad. Yeah, no,
Things will
and
fade.
I think
Die down. So
yeah,
it's yeah. You really need to be your own source of confidence, pride, joy. Validation. Be your own source of
yeah.
validation. You have to find that.
I struggle. I say this as I still struggle with it, right? Like metrics, this, that, and the
100%.
third. Like, you know, you're constantly comparing yourself to either who you once were or maybe someone that you're trying to be like, right? And it's just when you focus so much on that, you don't find peace and you don't get to live in the moment and really just be, the best version of you, because you don't even like you don't love yourself, right? You have to kind of teach yourself to love yourself, right? And I think you definitely hit the nail on the head. That like that's kind of a big element of it. Like you have to. What was the way you worded it? It was you worded it so well. What was it?
Be your own source of validation.
Yeah, be your own source of validation. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's effectively what it is. Yeah. Sorry, I
No,
love
no
that.
worries.
It's a big thing. No, it's just like yeah, no, it's like when I talk about this, it's like yeah, no, this idea, it's all gonna come together. So like, okay, I know we're running low on time, so I'll like
No, yeah, go ahead.
I'll be quick with this point. Another one was that so the idea of the hoverboard. I was like, okay, so how do you tie this into spirituality, right? And so the idea of the hoverboard was like, okay, you need to help people catch wind of new ideas, right? So you ride the hoverboard, it's like a little propaganda machine. You ride it around through the skies. And if you do that enough in the area, eventually people will catch wind of new ideas. So it's using like uh that kind of idea of it kind of has that Sonic Rush gameplay feel,
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
it's kind of using that idea of it's like it's in the wind, right? You can hear it, right? You can hear it, you can see it, like and it's just I kind of wanted I liked the saying of catch wind of new ideas being like kind of a tagline, right? And so that's where the hoverboard ties into some of those themes. And yeah, I feel like I'm pitching the game to you.
I mean, I've already sold. But again, this is also for viewers and listeners who might not be familiar with you. So it is very effective, and I feel like not only have you promoted your game, you promoted yourself, you filled in a lot of blanks and described a very good game. It's a very successful Kickstarter. The message is powerful. Yeah, you had the Dreamcast growing up. You like Sonic. I mean, there's nothing to hate really, and you suffered through a
I
terrible
like you
barber.
like Sonic as being one of the one of the driving factors. Yeah, you're like,
I am who I am.
yeah. Look, man, I will say this. I'm kind of like that too with Sonic. Where if I meet someone and they like Sonic, I'm like, yeah, we're gonna get along. We're gonna get
Yeah,
along at least a little. Do you know
because
what I
like
mean?
it's
Like,
such a niche. Like
Yeah,
platforming
it's a
in itself is a
niche.
niche, but like it's speed platforming, so it's like such a difficult genre to sell to people. So
And
someone who
it's
gets it,
also because Sonic has a bit of a stigma online, innit? And it's just like
yeah,
and this goes, you got to be your own source of validation, right? Do you know what I mean? Because I like when I was younger, like so for instance, like '06, right? And a bunch of the 3D games I grew up on, right? I
Mm,
remember I was online and then everyone told me they were all bad. I was like, damn, I really had fun with these. Now some of those games aren't good as an adult for me. But some of them I went back to and I said, this is actually kind of fun. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, and it took me
yeah,
a while to reach that point of validation where I was like, self-validation was like, actually, I do enjoy this. And I don't really care what this guy has to say online. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, no, Sonic's a really big one in terms of that. Yeah, sorry. Sonic's cool.
yeah. No, I mean that's a very good and relevant point to me because I have definitely gone through that, and I remember one time where I said, "Oh, I love the Sonic Heroes games," or I love Sonic Heroes. And someone
Yes.
in the group chat was just like crapping on it. It's like, oh, it wasn't that great. It was full of
Yeah, they're
glitches,
like,
full of bugs. It was
it's the way,
mid.
it's
And
the
all of
way.
a sudden, I'm like, okay, I don't like. Okay, maybe it wasn't that great. Okay,
Yeah, it's the
again,
way.
like
I've got a friend that
there's
hates heroes too, don't worry.
it's
Nah,
far
man.
from
They
the
hate
worst
that
Sonic
game.
game. So
They hate
yeah,
that game, man. They hate heroes. They hate Unleashed, man. Colors I don't love, but people hate colors. Like,
mm,
yeah, nah, man. There's a big stigma around some of those games, and
and
I like
yeah,
most of them. I'm not gonna lie. I think
I
it's such
yeah,
a cool niche.
it
Yeah,
is, yeah, and there's what I find very identifiable about the Sonic franchise, other than non-human, very brightly colored.
yeah,
A lot of the games are experiments. Like Sonic games are really experimental. Like you have racing games, like you said, you have fighting games, you have a lot of platforming games, 2D games, 3D games. Shadow has a gun in one game. Why? I
bro.
don't know.
I love
Like
it's
Sonic
so
'06.
people.
There's a lot of yeah. But like you look at
Yeah,
other games and it's like they're very successful, but they follow a tried and tested formula and they don't experiment, they don't go out of that linear formula, and that's it. Whereas with Sonic, they do experiment here and there. So I really do appreciate Sega for taking a lot of risks. And they've taken a lot of risks with like '06,
actually,
with
yeah,
Shadow,
you're
with
right.
Unleashed, with Colors, with Forces, Sonic Generations, even though that was a game that has been critically acclaimed, that was a risk.
Yeah.
That
Yes,
entire
I mean
concept.
they did the classic Sonic thing. Yeah, that was a risk. Yeah, and it was successful because they kept him around for a
Yeah.
while, for better or worse. But like, yeah, um, is okay. It's interesting too because Sonic back in the day, obviously I played a bunch of PS2 games and this stuff. Like, obviously I played my Fevers, my Need for Speeds, Devil May Cry, all this stuff, right? But like, um, I always went back to the Sonic games, right?
Mm,
And you kind of touched on something that made me really deep it until now. Like, I was like, what sounds so appealing about these Sonic games as a kid? Sonic was like a lottery, like a little lottery
yeah.
box, right? You just pick your hand in. You don't know what you're gonna get. Oh, this one's a shooting game, I
Mhm.
guess. Do you know? Oh, this one's a Tony Hawk inspired like skateboarder. That's hard. All right, cool. Pull again. Oh, this one's an RPG on the DS. Okay, cool. Sonic Battle. Have you heard of Sonic Battle?
No.
Sonic Battle is the one on the GBA. See, Sonic
Interesting.
Battle is a cold one. It's like
Okay.
it's like the fighting game that they made, but it's not the fam. Even after this, another
If
fighting
I
game.
if I look it up, it might ring a bell. It's just the name is not
Sonic Battle.
ringing any bell.
Yeah, it's a niche one. Don't worry. But like I
I'm
mess
gonna
with
look that
Sonic
up
Battle
now.
hard too. But there's like a type of game for every Sonic has like a Sonic recently dropped like a visual novel, like The Murder of Sonic. That's
Yeah.
inspired by Ace
Yeah.
Attorney. Do you know what I mean? So like it's
Mm,
just and that's why sometimes it's hard for me because obviously some people are like, oh man, all you play is Sonic. Like not me, but like obviously I've seen that sort of thing online. I'm like, even if all you play is Sonic, you're playing a lot of different games. Do you know
mhm.
what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like as a kid, it's a great series to be into because you'll play like a bunch of different ideas of games. You know, like it's almost really interesting. It's such an interesting series to get into because you just don't know what you're gonna get in that
Exactly.
sense.
Exactly.
So yeah,
And yeah, sometimes that's what it's all about, as a kid. It's just an IP that you instantly recognize and you're like, yeah,
yeah.
you go to your
Just
parents, I
blew,
want that
man.
game.
You know, he's pretty fast.
I can't lie, that was it for me. It was blue. I was like, cool.
Yeah, that was it for me. Then my favorite color became red, and Knuckles grew with me. So really, they got the whole primary color thing going on,
This
right?
is very
I
clever.
think I think like the first, okay, there are a few Sonic. I think there's like 5 or 6 Sonic characters that I think have like really interesting stories and all that stuff, right? But a lot of these characters, man, I think they're carried so much by their design, man, and I'm okay with it. To be like, I like Jet the Hawk, the green one, right? What does he
Mm,
do? I don't know. Like, he looks cold. Do you know what I mean? And he has a cool theme song. So
yeah.
like,
Hey, that's what you
yeah,
need for
nah.
the 10-year-old, you know? That's what you need.
That's all you need, fam. Even like a lot of these Sonic, like the Sonic vocal songs, like it doesn't matter and this that. Obviously, like they're not written from the perspective of these characters. The band's just made the songs. But
Mm,
for me as a kid, I'm like, oh, this is what Sonic wrote these lyrics. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's one of them ones, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. Like as a kid, that's all you need, man. Sometimes you just need a simplicity, and that's something that actually I do want to do after NIXIE. As I want to work on something a lot more simple. You know, like I love the game, I love the idea. It's the culmination of a lot of what I've been working on, but like equally so, I think because it has so much like conceptually going into it, it's like there's a lot. It's a more complicated thing to make. Whereas I think my next game project or my next idea, I think I'm just gonna like focus on, like damn, what's it called? Focus on making the game like just like not like Sonic, but like a game that's more you pick it up and you play it like
Pick
a
up and
Mega Man or
playable.
yeah,
Yeah,
like a Sonic or a Mario. Just go.
yeah.
And yeah, so that's me. That's me.
I thank you so much for your time, David. You've been very, very generous.
No
I know
worries.
there will be haters out there that said, "Oh, I'm glad that you talked about NIXIE a little bit on this Sonic podcast," but I've
No,
really
hey,
enjoyed
hey,
you being on here.
hey, that's it. Well, how many times do you get to talk about Sonic on a podcast? Like
Exactly.
I'm always trying to find my like, even on my channel, man. I'm like, when am I gonna get to talk about Sonic? I'm like, I mean, I love this Boondock thing. Huey's cool and all, but like, if I get Sonic on here, man, it's over for all
Uh,
of you.
that would be a very ambitious crossover.
Yeah. We'll see what I can do. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. Honestly, like it's been great. Like I love chopping it up about this stuff and even kind of bouncing back with you with some of the ideas that like I'm messing around with NIXIE. It's just always fun. It's always cool. And yeah, NIXIE actually doesn't have a Steam page up right now. I'm working on getting it set up. It should be
Okay.
set up by the end of this month or next month. But it does have a Twitter account, and I'm planning to make an Instagram very soon. I don't know when this is coming out. But the Twitter account is NIXIE_game. So that's NIXIE_game if you want to check out NIXIE, if you want to see the development process, if you want to, see some of the stuff that's been out, see what people are saying about it. You can also follow me on obviously YouTube, Storyteller, and if you want to support the game, send money, do whatever you want to do. I have a Patreon at the Soul Minded, and a Ko-fi if you just want to drop a one-time donation. So yeah, no, that's me. That's me. That's the plug. That's the YouTube. That's the YouTube process. You just lock into it. It's like, yeah, you want to
Yeah,
support, you got to do this. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Like,
dude. I didn't even have
yeah.
to ask. You told me what the next project's gonna be, and you just shouted out all your socials. You've been the perfect guest.
Yeah, no worries. Because I looked at the time and I said, oh, don't worry, I know what to do.
Yeah, we're getting the signal.
Don't worry.
Yeah, once again, thank you so much, David, for the time. We will put links into the description to all of our viewers and listeners. So wherever you are watching or listening to this podcast, you can support NIXIE, or you can just drop a message. Hey, if you want, leave a comment on the YouTube or the Spotify, and we might get David back on to answer those questions, because I'm sure, look, if I saw someone on the podcast who brought up someone selling sweets at Playground, that would trigger a lot of thoughts in my head. So yeah, we might bring him on for a Q&A or something like that. But all the best with NIXIE and its launch. I'm assuming there's not a release window just yet.
I'm sure it's going to be out for the backers at the end of this year and mid next year for everyone else. So
There you
that's the plan. Yeah.
go. So you have something to
You heard
look
it here
forward
first.
to.
Yeah.
Streamcast exclusive. Let's go. We're getting
Yeah,
into
no,
the
actually, I
news
think that I don't think I've actually announced that publicly. The backers know, but yeah, no, like it's the plan. Yeah, so yeah, that's your exclusive. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, juicy.
lovely.
Wrong with that?
Well, yes, please. All the links will be in the description for you to support David and NIXIE. And if you like the Streamcast, we'll put all of our links in the description as well, so you can keep up to date with our content, our machinations. But until next time, please take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Stay safe. Keep on gaming. See you in the next one. Peace.